Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarech, we are continuing with Perek Shvi'i in the Rambam's Hilchos De'ot, the seventh and final chapter in the Rambam's laws of personality development, in his Sefer Mada, his book of knowledge. In today's Perek, we are going to discuss Rechilus, Lashon Hara, Motzi Shemra, Nikima, and Netira. We're going to speak about gossip, speaking badly about people, spreading lies, taking revenge, and bearing a grudge. And we'll begin with Rechilus. Halacha Aleph, Hameragel bechaverai, somebody who gossips about his friend, he transgresses a negative commandment. As the pasuk says, you shouldn't gossip among the nations. Even though you don't get the minimum biblical punishment, which is lashes, because of the sin of En Gadolhu, it's a huge transgression. And it leads to many deaths from people from Bnei Yisrael, and this is why the pasuk of not to gossip was put right next to not to stand on the blood of your fellow, meaning this was alluding to the fact that it causes many to die. And we could learn this also from the story of Doeg Ha'adaymi. What was the story of Doeg? So Doeg told Shaul HaMelech that Achimelech, who was the Kohen in a city called Noiv, that Achimelech gave David, who Shaul was in the middle of pursuing, food and other weapons, etc. So Shaul got enraged by this that he heard from Doeg, and he ordered that Achimelech and the entire city of Noiv be killed, and they were slaughtered. And Achimelech, really mistaken by giving David all these things, and had Shaul HaMelech asked Achimelech what happened, he would have told him the truth, and there's probably an explanation, and Shaul probably wouldn't have gone and killed the entire city. But since Doeg spread this gossip to Shaul, it ended with the entire city and Achimelech getting slaughtered. And that is what we're saying here, that we see that gossip leads to a lot of bloodshed. Halacha Beis, the Rambam defines this type of gossip. Ezehu Rachil, what's considered gossiping? Zeshun Toyin Dvarim, V'haylech Mizeh Lezeva Amar, Kach V'kach, Amar Pliny, V'kach V'kach, Shamaiti Al Pliny. You spread these things that you heard, you say, I heard this and this about this person, or this and this was told to me about this person. Afal Pishu MS, even if what you're saying is the truth, Harezeh, Machariv Es Ha'olam, this leads to the destruction of the world. Yesh Avin Gadol Mizeh Ad Me'od, but now the Rambam says, there's an even greater transgression than this type of gossip spreading. V'hu Bichlal Lavzeh, and it's included within this transgression. V'hu Lashon Hara, and this is what we're going to call Lashon Hara, negative speak. V'hu Hamesaper Bignus Chaveroi, this is when somebody speaks negatively about his friend. Afal Pi Sha'amar Emes, even if that which he's telling over is the truth. And we should add that this is worse than just gossip for two reasons. Either it could be worse because in the time of Lashon Hara, your intent is to speak negatively, whereas in gossip, it's not necessarily always negative. And second is that when you gossip, it's usually for your own personal hana, your own enjoyment. You enjoy the fact that you're telling somebody else something that they didn't know and getting to see their reaction. But Lashon Hara, you're spreading negativity about your friend, sometimes just to spread the negativity. And that's why it could be worse. And now, if that is not true, the things that you're spreading, that's called Motzi Shemra Al Chaver Nikra. That's called Motzi Shemra. You're spreading these lies. So now what's Lashon Hara? We said it's truthful, so it's somebody who sits there and he says to somebody else, this guy did this negative thing, and this is who his parents are, they come from X and X place, and this is what I heard about them, all these negative gossip spreads, and you spread these negative things about him, and this is what the pasuk means when it says, that Hashem's going to cut off the lips of the people who speak gayol, and he's going to cut off the tongues of the people that speak these type of proud things. Halacha Gimel, the Rambam is going to continue to speak about the severity of Lashon Hara. Amru Chachamim, our sages taught, Shalish Avedos Nifra'im Min Ha'adam Ba'olam Hazev Ein Leichelek Le'olam Haba. 3 transgressions cause a person to get retribution in this world and also not to have a portion in the world to come. What are they? Avodah Zarah, serving false deities, Vigilai Arayis, and illicit sexual behavior, Ushvichas Damim, and murder, Ve'Lashon Hara Keneged Kulam, and Lashon Hara is equivalent to all. Now, the Chafetz Chaim comments, just like we have a phrase, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that when you learn Torah, it's equal to all the others. So the Chafetz Chaim explains, why is Talmud Torah considered so great? Because Talmud Torah has something unique, that it uses your speech and your thought in order to do the mitzvah, whereas other mitzvahs are only done through your deed, your actions, and therefore Torah is considered on a level higher than all the other mitzvahs. So the Chafetz Chaim compares and he says, so too Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, you're taking something that contains thought and speech, and you're doing the opposite. You're putting it to the lowest of the lows, and therefore it's equal to all of the averis in the Torah. Okay, continue. And our sages also taught, anybody who tells over this lashon hara, it's like he's denying the essence of God Himself. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, Asher Amru Lilishaynenu Nagbir Svasenu Itanu Mi Adain Lanu. As the pasuk says, somebody who speaks with our tongues will prevail, our lips with each other, who is considered our God, since Hashem created the world with speech, and now we're using that same power of speech to talk negatively, we're actually denying Him Himself. And so to our sages taught, there are three people that this sin of lashon hara kills. Who are the three? Ha'amrai, the one who speaks the lashon hara, v'hamekablai, and the one who listens to that person speaking the lashon hara, and the third person is who you are speaking about. And the worst of all three of these people is the person who's listening to the lashon hara. He's the worst out of the three parties. Halacha Daled, the Rambam is now going to speak on things that border lashon hara. V'yesham dvarim shehein avak lashon hara. There are some things that are what we're going to call the dust of lashon hara. It means that it's very similar to lashon hara. You're not there yet, but you're treading a fine line. Ketzad, give me some examples. Mi yomer lepleni shia kemaishu ata. Let's say somebody says to continue that this person should continue acting the way that they are now, implying what? That before he wasn't acting in the proper way. So that's on the line. Aisha yomer, or one says shishku mi pleni eni roitz alay diama era umahaya. You say, I can't tell this story. Don't ask me about this person because I have to tell the story if I speak about this person. And you say any other type of things that they're bordering the line of lashon hara. Or let's say you go to somebody that you know hates your friend and you start praising your friend in front of him. That's also avak lashon hara. Why? Because you know that person is going to respond and he's going to start speaking negatively. He's going to say, how can you be so praiseful of this guy? He's X, Y, and Z. And this is what Shlomo said. That somebody who speaks about their friend in a loud voice in the morning, in the end they're going to cause curses upon them. Because from this goodness, so to speak, that you're doing, it's going to come a negativity on the person. Let's say somebody speaks lashon hara in a joking way, he does it in a laughing way. He doesn't do it in this hatred way, but he says it in the, he's just joking around with the boys. This is what Shlomo Melech said. It's like a madman who throws fire and arrows and death all around him, and then he tells his friend, no, I'm just joking when I do it. And so too, if somebody speaks lashon hara in a sly way, he speaks it and he acts like he doesn't know that this thing is lashon hara. And then when somebody goes and reproves him for saying lashon hara, he responds and says, he says, really, that person did that? Or, oh, this is lashon hara? He acts like he doesn't know when really he does know. Halacha hey, the Rambam continues talking about lashon hara. It's still lashon hara regardless of whether you speak it in front of him or behind his back. Let's say you say things that when it goes down the pipeline from one guy to the other, it's going to end up hurting the person you're talking about, either his money or him physically, even if it just annoys him or it scares him. That's also lashon hara. So you spread something, and maybe in the beginning it's not considered lashon hara, but eventually when it reaches the third guy, the fourth guy, it's going to hurt the person you're talking about. That's also lashon hara. Now the Rambam qualifies all of his laws of lashon hara. Let's say you say this in front of three people. Then this thing is considered in the public knowledge. And let's say one of those three people then goes and tells it again. Then you don't have the transgression of lashon hara, and it's an important addition to say that this is only when you're talking about not in a negative way. So I say something to three people, and then one of those three people goes and informs somebody else about something that they think happens. That's not considered lashon hara. And this is only when the intention is not to spread the deed all over the place. All these people that do any of these things, they're considered balei lashon hara, speakers of lashon hara, and it's forbidden to live in that neighborhood. And for sure not to sit with them and listen to their words. As we know, that all the punishments that were afforded to our ancestors in the desert were only caused because of the lashon hara And we're talking about what the Lashon Hara that the Meraglim spoke about Eretz Yisrael, which caused us to be in the desert for an extra 40 years. That's why we were there. Halacha Zayin, the Rambam now finally moves on to revenge. Somebody who takes revenge on his fellow transgresses a negative commandment, as Shenamar, as the pasuk says, Loi Sikoim, do not take revenge. Even though you don't get lashes, which again is the minimal biblical punishment. It's a very, very terrible thing. And it's fitting for this person to rise above everything, every physical thing in the world. All of these physical things, they're just a specter of nothingness to this person who raises above all the physicality, and therefore there will never be a time where he comes to take revenge. Now the Rambam defines this revenge. What's this revenge? Somebody tells his friend, Hashileni kardumcha, can I please borrow your hatchet? He says back to him, Eini mashilcha, I don't lend it out. Now this guy who said no the day before comes back to the guy who asked, and now he needs to borrow his hatchet, and Amar Lai says to him, Hashileni kardumcha, can I please borrow your hatchet? Amar Lai, so now the guy who was wrong in the first place responds back and says, Eini mashilcha kiderech shalai hish altani kisheshalti mimcha. He says, sorry buddy, the same way you wouldn't lend me your hatchet yesterday, I'm not going to lend you my hatchet today. This is what we call revenge. Rather, when he comes and he asks the next day, you should give it to him with a full heart. And you shouldn't want to get back at him the way he got at you. And so to all other examples of this type of business dealing that goes on. And this is what David HaMelech said with his great deeds. Gamalti shalni ra va'achalza tzariri rekam. If I come and do wrong on those who did me wrong, I will recuse the hate that had no purpose. And David HaMelech is speaking about how the fact that he did not kill Shaul HaMelech, who was chasing him, even though David had the many opportunities to kill Shaul, he didn't take revenge for Shaul's actions. Halacha Ches, the Rambam is now going to speak about bearing a grudge. Anybody who bears a grudge on another from Yisrael, he transgresses a negative commandment. As the pasuk says, you shouldn't hold a grudge against one of the children of my nation. What's an example of this? Reuven says to his friend Shimon, can you rent me this house? Or can I borrow this ox? And Shimon doesn't want to agree to Reuven's request. Now, a few days later, Shimon needs to rent or borrow something from Reuven, who he denied earlier. And Reuven says to Shimon, Hey, lecha harini mishalcha ve'eni k'maisecha v'layashali lecha k'ma'asecha. He says, sure, take my thing, because I am not like you, who wouldn't rent or borrow it to me earlier this week. Somebody who does this is called bearing a grudge, and he transgresses the negative commandment. Rather, what should a person do? He should erase this feeling from his heart completely. And he shouldn't bear a grudge. Because any time that he bears a grudge and he remembers it, he could come to take revenge. As long as this feeling is harbored inside of him, he might come to take revenge. Therefore, the Torah was very careful when it came to bearing a grudge until this grudge is completely removed from your body and you don't even remember it. And this is the proper way to do any type of business dealings and to keep up a good environment and to create a good relationship between a man and his fellow. Berich Rachmana Desayon. Mazel tov on finishing Hilchos De'ot. In Mitzvah Hashem, we should have the schus of finishing all of Sefer Mada together. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we should finish all 14 books of the Rambam's Mishneh Torah in order that we could finish Kol HaTorah Kula. Mazel tov, we will start Hilchos Talmud Torah tomorrow.